A family's fight for survival. Deep in the wilderness, a young couple with their 2 children embarked on an off-roading camping trip in their trusty blue Jeep Gladiator. They drove along isolated trails, surrounded by nature in all its raw beauty. As they made their way deeper into the forest, the couple noticed a strange quiet falling over the woods. It was unnervingly silent, as if all the animals had fled, inviting only a sense of foreboding. They found a great spot to camp near a babbling stream, and under the warmth of the setting sun, everything felt peaceful and comfortable. But as the stars started to twinkle high above them, the couple heard strange noises escaping from the woods, unexplainable sounds that were both eerie and unnatural. The children shivered with fright, hiding their nervous tears. The couple tried their best to soothe them with the comforting warmth of their fire and boost their confidence by building them a makeshift tent nearby. But they couldn't ignore the persistent anxiety gnawing at their core. As the blackness of the night draped itself over the forest, the strange noises surrounding the family intensified, and the couple started to fear that this was no typical forest. While they sat around the fire, the family noticed a continuous movement at the edge of their campground, as if being watched from a distance. They tried their best to dismiss their apprehension, but as time passed, they realized that they weren't alone in the woods. Something or someone was tracking them with malign intent. The morning brought no reprieve. They found their beloved Jeep had been vandalized. The gas tank had been pierced, and all their supplies were stolen. With no other form of transport, they were marooned, alone, isolated, and helpless. As the family huddled together, increasingly fearful, they discovered that their food was running low, the scraps of the day before offering little sustenance to the forlorn group. The day passed them by, slowly, and full of apprehension. They set about building a better shelter to protect their offspring and themselves, and amassed what weaponry they could find. But all their preparations were for naught, for in the dead of another chilling night, they found themselves being hunted. Something was out there, clawing at the makeshift defenses around them, trying to break into their tiny haven. Drenched with sweat and with adrenaline flowing, the couple knew they needed to fight for their lives and the sake of their children. They fled their shelter, their hearts pounding, weapons flailing in the darkness. In the unrelenting wilderness, with naught but the tips of the stars guiding their way, the family faced the terror of what seemed like an eternity of fright as they zigzagged through the daunting forest in a bid for survival. For hours they moved determinedly through the dense underbrush, running as if their very lives depended on it, everything around them seen through a veil of panic. The suspense was almost too much to bear, but as they came upon the edge of the woods, a feeling of relief washed over them. In the distance, the headlights of a car beckoned to them, forming a beacon of hope. They raced towards the car, shouting and waving their weapons, desperate for the attention of its driver. Title: Lost in the Woods. As Julie set out on her hike in the woods, she couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. She had always enjoyed the solitude and tranquility of hiking, but there was something different about this place. The air was thick with an aura of eeriness, and a strange energy hung in the air. Despite her growing unease, Julie trudged along the forest path. She took in the beauty of the towering trees, the rustling of leaves in the breeze, and the birds chirping. However, the peacefulness was short-lived as she heard a low, guttural growl that sent shivers down her spine. Julie's heart started pounding, and her instincts told her to run, but something held her back. She couldn't quite put her finger on it, but there was something powerful and magnetic about the growl that pulled her towards it. She pressed on, her pulse racing with every step. As she walked further into the depths of the woods, the growling became more frequent and more sinister. The trees around her seemed to be closing in, and the air was thick with a feeling of dread. Julie knew she was lost, and there was no way out. Suddenly, she heard a blood-curdling scream that pierced the silence of the forest. A feeling of absolute terror consumed her as Julie realized that she was not alone, and something evil was lurking in the woods. She felt a rush of panic and fear as she began to run, her lungs filling with the hot air as she struggled to keep up her pace. The noise followed her through the forest, chattering like an animal in its search for prey. The noises seemed to be coming from every direction at once, as though the forest itself was playing tricks on her mind. Julie stumbled over roots and rocks, frantically searching for a way out, but it was too late. She turned and saw it. A creature so heinous, so vile and grotesque that it made her blood run cold. Its eyes were deep and empty, reflecting an intense and malevolent power. Julie tried to scream, but nothing came out. Instead, she was consumed with a sense of hopelessness and despair as the creature closed in on her. The creature towered over her, its breath hot and fetid on her face. She saw the sharp teeth glinting in the low light and the wicked claws that would soon end her life. Julie closed her eyes, ready to accept her fate. But then she heard it, a voice, soothing and gentle, whispering gentle words of comfort in her ear. The voice gave her the strength to fight back, and she summoned all her courage to face the creature. Julie's eyes flashed open, filled with determination as she scrambled to her feet, ready for a fight. The creature swiped at her with its claws, but Julie dodged and countered with a swift punch to the creature's face. The impact was enough to knock the creature off balance, and Julie took the chance to run for her life. Her heart pounded in her chest as she sprinted through the forest, desperately trying to escape the creature's wrath. But it was too late. She had already caught its attention, and it was relentless in its pursuit. Julie ran and ran until, at long last, she saw the edge of the forest. She broke her way through the undergrowth and emerged onto a roadside, gasping for air. With a sigh of relief, Julie collapsed onto the ground, panting and shaking with fear. She knew that she had just survived a close call with the supernatural, but she had no idea what kind of horror she would face on her journey back home. It was a beautiful day for a hike in the mountains, but as Tom and his friends trekked through the rugged terrain, they sensed an ominous presence. Suddenly, a massive bear charged at them with supernatural fury. Its eyes glowed an eerie red, and strange symbol appeared to be etched into its fur. The friends ran for their lives as the possessed bear pursued them, its growls echoing through the forest. They were cornered, with no means of defense. Tom knew that they had to act fast if they wanted to make it out alive. With a sudden moment of clarity, Tom realized that the bear was not acting like a normal animal. It was like some strange paranormal entity, had taken control of its body. Tom picked up a rock and hurled it at the bear, hoping to break the entity's grip and give them time to escape. Instead, the bear grew even more violent and charged towards them with supernatural force. Tom knew that they wouldn't make it if he didn't do something drastic. He picked up another rock and waited for the right moment. As the bear lunged towards him, Tom summoned all his strength and threw the rock with all his might. It hit the bear directly between the eyes, and the entity possessing it was momentarily stunned. With his friends in tow, Tom ran as fast as he could, trying to put as much distance as possible between themselves and the possessed bear. After what felt like an eternity of running, the friends finally escaped to the safety of an open field. They collapsed onto the grass, gasping for air, and feeling both relieved and terrified. Suddenly, they heard the possessed bear growling in the distance, still ravenous and relentless in its pursuit of them. Despite the odds stacked against them, Tom and his friends had used their quick thinking and determination to survive the supernatural threat that had possessed the bear. It would be a hike that they would never forget. This one is called Sam's fishing trip. Sam had always been an outdoorsman at heart. There was nothing he loved more than a good fishing trip, with his Toyota truck and his trusty fishing gear in the back. So, when he heard about the trout streams in Idaho, he knew that he had to visit them. Sam spent weeks planning his trip, making sure that he had everything he needed for his adventure. He packed his tent, sleeping bag, and a cooler full of food and drinks. He also loaded up his fishing gear, including his favorite fishing rod, lures, and bait. Finally, he hopped into his Toyota truck and set out for Idaho, excited for what lay ahead. Sam spent the first few days exploring all the trout streams he could find. He caught plenty of fish, but he was still searching for the big one. Then, on the fourth day, he came across a stream that looked different from the others. It was darker, more shadowed, and seemed to go on forever. Sam felt a shiver run down his spine as he looked at the stream. There was something about it that was both eerie and alluring all at once. Nevertheless, he was determined to catch a big trout, so he grabbed his fishing gear and started to wade into the water. The sun was setting, casting long shadows over the stream. Sam cast his line, letting the lure dance through the water. He waited patiently for a bite, but the water was still and silent. It was as if everything around him was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. Suddenly, Sam felt a tug on his fishing line. He eagerly began to reel it in, wondering if he had finally caught the elusive big one. But as the line grew taut, he realized that it was not a fish at all. Something else was on the other end, something strong and determined. Sam struggled to reel in the line, his arms straining under the weight of whatever was at the other end. Sweat poured down his face as he fought to bring it closer. Finally, he caught a glimpse of it in the fading light, a strange shape writhing and twisting in the water. At first, he thought it was a log or a piece of driftwood, but as it came closer, he realized that it was something else entirely. It was a mass of writhing tentacles, each one black and thick like a python. They twisted around each other, creating a grotesque shape that looked like nothing Sam had ever seen before. Sam felt his stomach twist with fear as he realized what he was dealing with. This was no ordinary fishing trip, no simple adventure in the wild. There was something paranormal here, something beyond his understanding. As the tentacle mass drew closer, Sam suddenly realized that he was in grave danger. He scrambled backwards, trying to get out of the water, but the creature was too fast. It closed in on him, the tentacles wrapping around his legs, dragging him down into the water. Sam struggled and thrashed, trying to break free, but the entangling tentacles were too strong. He felt himself being pulled down, further and further into the depths of the stream. As he sank deeper into the water, Sam began to see things that made his blood run cold. Strange shapes and movements caught the corner of his eye, disappearing as soon as he turned to look. He heard whispers and murmurs, whispers that seemed to come from all around him, but there was no one in sight. Sam felt like he was losing his mind. As the darkness closed in around him, he wondered if he would ever see the light again. Then, suddenly the tentacles loosened their grip on him, and Sam rose to the surface, gasping for air. He crawled out of the water, shivering and soaked to the bone. As he looked up, he saw that the sun had set, and the world around him was dark and silent. There was no sign of the tentacle creature, or anything else that might explain what he had just experienced. Shaken to his core, Sam stumbled back to his tent. He lay there, recounting the events over and over in his mind, trying to make sense of what he had seen. But no matter how hard he tried, he could not find any explanation for the paranormal activity he had witnessed. From that day on, Sam's fishing trips took on a new dimension. This final one I call the horror of the Colorado wilderness. David and Mike were both adventurers at heart, with an unrelenting thirst for exploring new terrain and building their own vehicles. They just finished their dream off-road project, a pair of brand new Ford Broncos equipped with modifications designed to make them unstoppable on any terrain. With their new, upgraded vehicle, they set off on a road trip to explore the rugged terrain of Colorado. As they arrived, they were greeted by the breathtaking beauty of the Colorado hillsides. They traveled to various lesser-known ghost towns and abandoned cities where adventurers like them had vanished. Making their way up a steep mountain, they found themselves in a ghost town. They couldn't shake the eerie feeling that they were being watched by something unseen. As they continued through the deserted streets, strange occurrences kept happening. Doors opening and closing, whispers in the wind, and the feeling of being followed by unseen eyes. They finally found a rundown lodge, hoping to find refuge from the horrors of the trip. As they settled down to camp, they heard unearthly sounds emanating from the nearby woods. Chills ran down their spines as they scrambled to prepare for an unknown horror that descended on the campsite. The creatures were horrific. Wolf-like creatures with massive claws and razor-sharp fangs emerged from the dark shadows of the mountain forest. They viciously attacked the camp and left behind only wreckage as evidence. David and Mike fled into their Broncos and tried to outrun the creatures through the rugged terrain of Colorado's mountains. Every twist and turn took them further from safety, closer to death. The creatures were unrelenting, and no matter how hard they tried, the Broncos couldn't outrun them. It wasn't long before they found themselves trapped, surrounded, and without a single bit of hope. The creatures descended and unleashed a ferocious and murderous attack. In the end, neither David nor Mike stood a chance to survive the attack and became the next missing persons in the Colorado wilderness, or did they?